All right, so I got the skin off the passenger side now, and I'm looking pretty good. So I reached out onto the Raptor Swap Facebook page and kind of figured out what the deal is with this stuff. So I guess what everyone does is they end up trimming this to kind of match what the OEM, actual steel looks like. So I'll probably end up like cutting around here, and like I'll cut this off. Same thing down here. So the fixes I made on this part, I guess, were kind of unnecessary at this point. But so basically, once you cut it and trim it, it'll look exactly like OEM and slide over just like it's supposed to. So I'm going to cut those and trim this and get this all to look nice eventually. Obviously, I have to do that to fit it on. And then the next thing is there's this weird like inner lip thing that I guess like was the OEM steel kind of like inner fender up here. And I don't know if I have the angle for it here in this tiny workshop, but you can see that even if I slide this up another couple inches so that way it fits properly, I'm still going to have this nastiness in here. So this just held on by spot weld, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that on both sides as well. So originally my next update was going to be showing the bedside trimmed to kind of look like the original sheet metal. However, it was a lot, getting everything to fit nicely was a lot more involved than I imagined. So once I got it on here, it's really there was no getting it back off easily. So I just decided to leave it, and I'll update you from here. So while you can see it's mounted, I did a couple things I want to show you first. So lighting's going to be poor over here, but as you can see, I bedlined the whole, I guess this is the outside of the bed box, or like the inner well, because I won't have those plastic fender liners anymore, and I don't want this steel to get rock chips and rust and stuff like that. So the same thought process that I used for the inside of the fiberglass. So that was done. As you can see, I removed that inner kind of like structure there. So it's a nice smooth surface now. So it looks pretty good. And then to get this thing to fit was definitely a process. I feel like it was, I don't know, 3% smaller than it should have been. I had to do a lot to get it to fit nicely. So as you can see, I basically cut out that whole connecting section here and left nothing really, just kind of kept it in line with the other, like the original fiberglass over here, kind of cut it there. Originally was going to try to leave it longer, but was not going to fit. So in here, there's a piece of metal that's pretty much shaped like this little, I don't know, this looks like a dog's head to me or something. But there's a piece of steel shaped like that. I had to cut the tip off like that. I think because the fiberglass has so much thickness, it was interfering there. So I had to cut the tip off to get that to fit. Over here, I had to lop off there's a whole like bunch of sheet metal down here, structure. You can see it on this side over there. See all that hanging down there? So I had to lop all this off because it was interfering down here, and I couldn't get it to pull in. I mean, you can see how tight this is here. This is pulling this sheet metal apart because there's no, I guess the spot welds are not, connecting this back piece of metal. You can kind of see it move there. So I'm hoping when I rivet it, I'm gonna drill through everything, try to suck it in separately over here with just the metal. And then hopefully that kind of sucks the fiberglass in, because as you can even see it's kind of like bowed out a little bit here. I'm not too worried about cutting that metal out. I was eventually going to do that dovetail cut from behind the fender flare up on an angle. I'm eventually going to do that, so that piece of metal would have had to go anyway. So I'm not too concerned about that. All right, up here, I had to cut out the original kind of overhang that would attach to this just because it was too short. It was sitting on top of kind of this bulkhead up here, and it wouldn't fit unless I cut that out. I also had to cut the overhang that runs the whole length of the bed. Had to cut it right here also because it was just interfering with this. Down here, looks like it's like pretty tight fitment, so I'm pretty happy with that. But then once again, there was too much interference down here. I have it clamped just so it stays in place and stays tight. But there was too much interference down here, so I had to remove about, I don't know, an inch, 3/4 of an inch of metal from the bottom here. So you got this slide down. So I'm a little disappointed with how much effort that took. I thought once I cut out the material by the taillight, I thought it would just kind of pop on. I didn't know I was going to have to modify the bed so much, so it's pretty frustrating. And like I said, just felt like 3% too small. So if it was just a tiny bit bigger, I think it would slide on a lot easier. But all right, I am really relieved that this is on though. So I'm gonna have to repeat the process on the other side, which is gonna be kind of nice actually, because the fiberglass won't be in my way while I'm trying to work. So I'll go ahead and trim the things I know need to be trimmed, and I'll get the other side on. Okay, things are progressing. As you can see, I got the driver's side on now as well. So now I think I'm ready to start attaching these. But just a couple notes. I am gonna have to definitely eventually come back and do some cleanup work. For instance here, let's see if I can get a good angle there. I know the lighting in here is really bad, but you can kind of see these stress cracks here. That was from me like forcing this on into place, because like I said, it was a really tight fit. There's some more right there. So I'm kind of assuming that's normal for fiberglass, or normal for the caliber fiberglass that's going on to these bedsides. But so that's going to be something I'll take care of down the road. So yeah, I'm going to clamp everything in place, get it to where I want it to be, and then I'm going to start riveting it in place. And so I'm going to be using these 1/8 inch diameter, 1/4 inch grip, just stainless steel pop rivets. So I chose stainless steel because on the 09 to 14s, the body's still steel. So if I went with aluminum, which are a little bit more readily available, I could possibly have some corrosion issues, some galvanic corrosion issues between the aluminum and the steel body, or bed, if you will. So I chose stainless steel. Hopefully that minimizes the issue. And they are a little bit harder to find, so just be aware of that. But, so I think my plan is I'm just going to start drilling holes and putting rivets in everywhere that spot welds were. I'm going to attempt to have the same number of rivets as there were spot welds to kind of mimic what the OEM did to provide as much strength as possible. So I'm going to get started on that, and I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. All right, so some more bad lighting for you, but I think I got the passenger side pretty much secured here. I used 2 boxes of 20 rivets, so 40 rivets altogether to get this thing secured. I'll just kind of show you what it looks like. So there we go. Like I said, I kind of tried to follow where the original spot welds were, so you can see the holes here, kind of like the little indent from in the fiberglass where they molded it. But what I wanted to try to do is try to get this gap, riveted in place where these gaps were super tight, so that way I wasn't flexing and adding even more strain to the already strained fiberglass. So that's on there. If you look up top, you can see down the row, all those. I'm fingers crossed this doesn't interfere with the bed caps that are going to go on there. We'll see. But basically what I did was I reached under, and whenever there's a long tab of support under here, I went on the far left and far right of that little supporting piece of steel down there. So that's kind of what I use as a guideline. I used the clamp to keep it tight while I did it. In the back here, I put 4 rivets into the taillight area, actually exactly where the spot welds were. And then things get a little weird back here. The fiberglass is really thick up here, so there's a gap here just because, sorry, there's a hole here that I couldn't put a rivet just because the fiberglass is so thick. The piece of metal in there is a little bit deflected away, so I couldn't fill that. But so I got a couple rivets up here. I've got 4 down here, kind of spread out evenly. And I ended up putting a self-tapper down here. I think it's going to be temporary, but I needed something that was going to be tight, that would suck everything together, because that last piece of sheet metal, that's, you can kind of see the far piece of sheet metal in there was kind of flexed away because the fiberglass was pulling it. So I clamped that, put a self-tapper on. I'll probably just put a nut and bolt on there at some point, once I find one that fits nicely. So yeah, now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, and I'll start trying to put the bed caps on and get this thing back on the truck. Okay, both sides are on and riveted and secured, so I'm really excited to get this thing out of the garage and back on the truck, so that way I have a little bit more room to work and it's not as claustrophobic. But so all right, so next things I'm working on. So down here are the, I guess bedside supports. The front ones, so this is the front of the vehicle, is this way. The front ones you can kind of manipulate, kind of bend and kind of open up this angle a little bit, and you can get them to fit down here. So I just used, a stainless bolt and washer, secured that down, and I think it's gonna be perfectly functional. I might come back and cut this extra excess off just because it's not super necessary, but yeah, there it is. So the back though, the back is definitely short by probably a good 1.5 to 2 inches. So what I think is just because I have a welder, I'm fortunate enough to have a welder, so I'm just gonna cut that, extend it, and then I put some material back here. I think that should work. Okay, so just something I wanted to catch on camera before I put the bed back on is I'm fairly certain, just based on everyone else's experience on the Raptor swap page, is that for this fuel filler neck, you don't really have to do much. All I did was I used a pick and some silicone spray, and I basically wiggled the pick in there, made some space, sprayed the stuff. Eventually I was able to wiggle this basically steel filler neck out of the rubber hose here a little bit. So I think I moved, it started about, the edge of the hose was originally here, so I think I moved it about 1 inch, which should be plenty. The Raptor body isn't that much wider at the actual fuel filler fuel door, but I think this should be enough. So just a trick to do, don't forget to do this before you put the bed back on. Okay, another update in the very messy shop. So I got the bed supports in. I had some little tiny square tube that I used and kind of grafted in there between the 2 different tabs. I think it turned out pretty nice. I think it'll kind of hide away if you're not looking for it. But I also accomplished, I got the bed rail on to the driver's side. I think it turned out pretty nice. I got some weight down there because it kind of was flared up because one of the tabs broke. And I have some double-sided tape holding it down as well, hoping that once it kind of sets, it'll stay tight. But this is also not an easy process. You can kind of see, this is where I had my old CB antenna mounted, so I'll have to figure that out at some point. But it's not a super easy process because there's not holes up here, as you could probably imagine. And so what I did was, you can, I don't know if you guys can see it very easily, but there are little marks. There's no good ones. The other side was much better. But there's little marks and indents along here where you can kind of see where, here's a good one, right? So right there and right there were slots that were cut out in the original sheet metal. And I'm kind of using the original sheet metal as a guide to kind of see where I need to cut. But I basically drilled holes on the corners, and then use my Dremel to like cut them out with a little cutoff wheel and create those slots. So it's another messy process that would have been nice if it was included in the fiberglass, but I guess the expectation is that you just do it yourself. So I'm gonna work on that and get the other side on, and I think once I get the other bed side on, most of the dirty work will be done, and I'll go and get the bed put back on the truck. All right, so as you can see, the bed is on. Really easy to get on for the most part. Basically just did the exact opposite of what I did to get it off. So the engine hoist method, and got it on, and actually I think I got all the bed bolts pretty much in the exact same spot as they were. So I think that was probably a good sign. So I still obviously have a lot of work to do. I think getting the taillights fitted is going to be the next challenge, because there's still going to be some more fiberglass manipulation, drilling and whatnot to get those to fit properly. I'm sure I'll have to cut some stuff off. Fuel filler neck and a fuel door, I have to get that all assembled. I'm hoping that's going to work nicely. I'll let you know if it does not. But with the adjustment, I'm hoping it just kind of like, you know, everything fits well. Let's see what else. I don't have any wheel spacers on the back. And I don't know if I've mentioned this, but I am going to be running 2-inch wheel spacers. Some guys on the forums, or excuse me, some guys on the Raptor swap page run 3-inch, because I already have offset wheels that are, you know, 0 offset. I don't want to run 3-inch because then my brake calipers and rotors will be very much exposed. So I decided 2-inch. It seems a little bit like a safer option, and I want to protect my brakes from just, like, you know, getting rocks and getting hung up on, you know, various obstacles and whatnot. But so then I have the bumper to put back on, and, you know, all my tonneau cover and all my ridiculous wiring and lighting and stuff back here. So all right, so the hits just keep on coming. I thought, you know, taillights would be easy to slap in, and, you know, fuel filler, neck and fuel door were going to be fine, but of course it wasn't that easy. So I had to do a ton of trimming on the fiberglass inside this radius here. One, to even get it to fit in properly. Like I couldn't even like fit it in without trimming it first. So that was a big annoyance. And then once I actually could get the fit in, it was nowhere close. And this kind of, I'm going to try to get down low so you can see it's somewhat centered. It's a little low maybe, if anything. But it was like way over here to the right. That little rubber gasket thing around was like hanging up. So I ended up trimming that too, because I kind of figured it helped. And it kind of hides it, makes it blend in a little bit better. But so yeah, you're gonna have to modify the fuel door thing, or just like the cutout. You're gonna have to like trim it and finesse it to fit in. It just took time. It wasn't hard. Just took a lot of time and a lot of checking. So expect that. Going back to the tail lights. So you do have to drill out the 2 holes for the pins that are on the back of the taillight. Not that big of a deal. But then when I went to fit this in, the bolt holes for the actual taillight were nowhere near the pass-through holes that are in like the sheet metal here. So as you can see, I had to drill new holes to fit in the bolts so that way it kind of fit. I mean, overall fitment for the taillight is pretty decent. Like, you know, from the outside here, it looks pretty good. The line looks pretty good. Along the back, I think it leaves a little bit to be desired. I don't know, I just feel like the OEM one wasn't really shaped like this. You have this weird transition where it overhangs back to kind of being behind it. So that was pretty annoying, and a very similar case for the other side as well. So yeah, just like the fiberglass is just continuing to be a challenge. So my next thing I'm worried about is, because I had to shift this up like a 1/4 inch, is it going to be noticeable against the tailgate? So I'm going to do, I guess, tailgate next, and then bumper. All right, tailgate is on, as you can see, and no, that's not really a fiberglass fault. The tailgate was really hard to get on by myself. It's not super easy to adjust, and it's just a pain. So be prepared for some difficulty getting the tailgate on. Probably go get a friend. Probably would be a lot easier. So as you can probably already tell, fitment is not looking great, and it's going to need some finessing again. But the worst of it's like over here, super tight. I mean, it's literally touching the fiberglass and the tailgate here, and it's again touching up here in the corner. Not as bad on this side. This is like, I would call that a reasonable gap over here, and it's touching again at the top. So what I'm going to do for now temporarily is I'm just going to go and clearance all that with, you know, I don't know, what is this, a 1/16 of an inch gap or something, just to get clearance. So I'm not destroying anything on my trip. That's, you know, at the end of the week really is when it's a Monday now and I'm leaving on Friday. So I'm gonna just get some clearance. It's gonna need way more, you know, sanding later. You can see, you know, we have about 1/8 of an inch overhang of the fender here, and the top pin of the tailgate is adjusted all the way out already. So there's not much I can do about that. And then again, over here, another 1/8 of an inch hanging over. This looks pretty good on this side as far as depth goes. It's just an issue with, you know, this gap. Same thing over here. This depth looks pretty good as well. Tailgate opens really easily, which is nice. And yeah, you can literally see like the sheet metal of the tailgate's cutting this groove into here. So I'm going to start working on that. And then hopefully this is finally the last step before I get the bumper on and call this project complete. Okay, so here's the somewhat final product. Truck is going to need some paint, as you can probably see on the front, but the fiberglass is on, and it might be a little bit dirty than you remember seeing it in the last shot, and that's because I just finished my run. We did, you know, hundreds of miles throughout southern Idaho and North Utah, and I just wanted to keep it dirty to show you that the fiberglass survived. So yeah, like no fiberglass issues on this whatsoever. I will say in the wheel wells here on the bed supports, I would recommend using some Nylox. You can see the hole there, and this is no longer attached. The bolts came out, at least on this side they did. They're loose on the other side. So yeah, use some nylon lock nuts on there, and should be good to go. A couple other things. The bed rail here, this plastic cap here, is flaring up, and I think that's because I broke one of the clips in here. So it's partially my fault, but it's really kind of a pain to get it off anyway. I tried to fix it with some double-sided tape here, and as you can see, it's not working. So that'll have to be addressed again. I think the other side I used some double-sided tape on, it's still working, but this is not. So either I'll try to retape it, clean it up, retape it, or I'll, you know, find another solution. I did get the gaps back here a little bit better. Here it's, you know, from a distance it definitely looks acceptable, and up here you can kind of see that I ended up having to trim some of this plastic just because everything kind of fell a little bit differently. Got a little note from one of the guys on the run. And then up here, again, I did some more work. And so I don't think this is the final form. Obviously, this is going to get, like I said, finished up. And, you know, I didn't do any of the sanding to get this gap right. Actually, it looks better than it was, so that's interesting. I wonder if the tailgate shifted a little bit during that. And here, there is a gap. You know, it's kind of hard to see. It's kind of gray in there. So you can see the gap there, and it kind of hides if I get this angle here. But so let me just get in the tailgate, and I'll kind of show you some of the material I had to remove. So you can see all this gray up here. This is all fiberglass that I kind of shaved down to get the fitment somewhat acceptable for my run, and I didn't have anything rubbing. But one last thing to know is my tonneau cover is now really tight. So I'm gonna have to do some adjusting, and to kind of get it to close, I have to kind of like pull up on this, pinch it down. So there's a little bit of a gap here. I think there's some foam in that gap. see if it'll focus. Yeah, that gap right there is some foam. So might take that foam out on the edge and readjust it. It's really fine for now, and it's just a little bit of refinement that I'll need. Just like everything with this job, I'll need a little bit of refinement with the fiberglass as we go. An overall update on the truck. The truck handled really well on that run. It was with a bunch of Raptors, of course, real Raptors, and it did really well. You might notice the mismatching tire here. I did get a flat, but obviously that's nothing to do with the Raptor swap. And I just hit a rock. So there was 3 flats out of 7 trucks on that trip, so 3 total flats. So it seems like it's going to be a pretty regular occurrence. But yeah, so let's close this video out. I think that's all I got. All right, so hopefully you guys found this helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. It was a lengthy process, and it was a long process. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, so get ready if you plan on doing this. Thanks.